Progressive wins. We're really, really happy about that. Please do not let mainstream media gaslight you into self-doubt. I'm guilty of letting them do that to me. Have you ever felt victimized? Mean Girls reference. Alright, anyway, before I continue to be a total nerd, so this has been a fight in Texas for a while, and no one really saw this coming. It's these two laws that are being used to hold a democratic system hostage. So it's under HB 1842 and SB 1882. If you've seen some of my past videos on here, I've talked about charters and schools and all these terrible privatization stuff. You know, the Waltons having their fingers in schools and public education. Well, in Texas, if you don't privatize your school, your democratically elected board will get replaced by appointed managers. Let me explain how this works. Alright, see, I'm writing on Medium. So this was made in March 5th when the whole fight was going down. And there's some stuff in here that isn't as relevant, but this part still is. So we're going to talk about this part. Under HB 1842, if the districts have a single school that is on the Improvement Required IR list for 5 consecutive years, the Texas Education Agency, T, can replace the democratically elected board with appointed managers or shut the school down. The escape hatch: use SB 1882 to partner IR5 schools with charters, surrendering governance of staff and curriculum, and T won't replace the democratically elected board with appointed managers. Now, it's all such bullshit, so I really have to clarify on what this means. The ultimatum: under HB 1842, improve your test scores or T will replace your democratically elected board with appointed managers or close the school permanently. Don't want to give up democracy? Under SB 1882, privatize your failing schools and T will leave your district's democratically elected board alone. The benefits, and this is how they sell people on. This is how the local paper and every pro-charter, pro-privatization hack has sold this on. The benefits of SB 1882 include 2 years off of accountability for the school district. Still get ratings but not counted against the district, and the school gets extra money for the kids. These are short-term benefits that sound lovely for the price of long-term partnership / charter / privatization of a school. So they were really tricky how they did this. They put the first bill in 2015. They made that into law in 2015, and then the second bill they made into law into 2017. And it's important to note that these are sponsored by 3 Democrats and 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats and 4 Republicans. So it's really sneaky how they did this. And you know it's the lobbyists, it's the charter lobbyists who were, actively doing stuff behind the scenes. And I know how the lobbyist game works because before I came back to journalism, I was doing cannabis activism, and I worked with the cannabis lobbyist here in Houston. And it was a matter of, okay, if we get this bill in now, we can get this bill in later. And that's what the charter pro-privatization people did here in Texas. And it doesn't help. It doesn't fucking help that Governor Greg Abbott is, a staunch Republican. He is on board with Betsy DeVos' stuff. Greg Abbott appointed the people heading the Texas Education Agency. And because they're all so disgusting, the Texas Education Agency does not inform the public when a charter's putting their application in, when by law they are supposed to, and they do not. And the reason being is because there is money. There is money in education. And the people who are sucking up that money are teachers. Okay, number one, because the whole point of putting tablets and computers into schools is to systematically get rid of the teachers. And the easiest way to do this too, if the school board is showing resistance to not wanting to give up public education, is by cornering them to the point where it's like, okay, you have one failing school, you need to shut it down and privatize it, or face your replacement with appointed managers. It's such, like, we already know that we hardly have a democracy. We have more of an oligarchy. But at this point in Texas, they're trying to remove basic local democratic systems. They haven't had any success with it yet. I will say that. They almost had success with it in Waco, but the HISD parent advocates weren't having it. And now I just got to give a quick shout out to HISD parent advocates. They're the Houston Independent School District parent advocates. It's a group of parents, a small group, but a group no less, who fight the school board tooth and nail, and they fight the Texas Education Agency tooth and nail. They went to Waco when Waco was about to be taken over, and they were like, hell no! Well, not quite like that. It was a lot more, Robert's Rules sort of way. But that's what basically happened. And what's really scary is that Houston ISD, Houston's one of the larger school districts in Texas. It's really big. And if the state replaces this democratically elected board with appointed managers in Houston, in one of the largest school districts in Texas, that's going to set the precedent. Other smaller school districts are going to be like, oh, fuck. And the shittiest thing? The shittiest thing is that I've seen principals on their Twitter, I've seen teachers, people who love education and care about their kids say, please let the state take us over. Let the state take us over. And they don't really see it as a removal of democracy because the local school board is so corrupt and so entrenched with the developers that they need something different. They think they want something different. And I've called out a couple of them. I was like, hey, this principal thinks the removal of democracy. And then they delete their tweet. So, but anyway, I'm going to go back over to the chat real quick to make sure everything's okay. Oh, hey, Frank Fiamingo. I'm not going to say flamingo like Jordan did. Doing person about border issues. Yes, actually, Frank, if you go onto my Facebook page, I do have a couple of interviews with one in particular that's really good, and I hope to have him on by the end of the summer. Is a professor out of University of St. Thomas. He wrote this book, it was his dissertation, about how both parties are dismantling public education. His dissertation is beautiful. I read it and annotated, and I do plan on having him back on as an interview, especially if HISD gets democratically replaced, which that looks like a really big potential. Border issues, so border issues, that's going to be in my Houston updates section. I'm not quite there yet. I'm going to go through the comments, and if nothing else is happening, I'm going to get to the Houston updates. The Houston updates board, oh, dude, okay. So let's see. How long do you give a failing school to turn around its performance? Okay, so here's the thing, your question about how long does a school get to turn around their performance. There was one school, okay, in particular. This is an example. I believe it was Hattie Mae Elementary School. I could be wrong. But they submitted their proposal to the T 5 times. Like, they have, I believe it was, no, Adobe, I do not want updates. They have like a year to turn it around. They have to submit their proposal by the end of the school year, and then they have to implement it at the beginning of the new school year. And if it gets denied, they can put in more proposals. The thing is, these schools are submitting proposals to turn around. Like, it's not like they're not doing anything. They're submitting proposals to the Texas Education Agency saying, hey, this is our plan of action. This is what we want to do. And sometimes they ask for support, sometimes they don't. And the thing is, if they ask for support and it gets rejected, they come up with another proposal to be like, okay, you won't help us out, we're going to do this on our own. And they still get rejected. So that was when I first started learning about HISD, was when I saw HISD parent advocates just, I'm not going to say bitching, because it was very just. Like, what they were saying was very just. They're like, we've submitted this proposal 5 different times to Texas Education Agency, and they haven't approved it. You know why the Texas Education Agency won't approve proposals to fix schools? Because they don't actually want schools fixed. And the thing is, a lot of these schools, if you happen to look at any of my articles, they were in black and brown communities, the most systemically disadvantaged communities of Houston. They happen to be in areas of Houston where the property values are skyrocketing through the roof, right? So instead of, like, I don't know, putting programs back into those schools that they took away, or picking up the garbage, they don't even pick up the garbage in some of these communities. They just let it rot and fester. They're systematically trying to push out black and brown people. Most importantly, and classism and racism goes hand in hand to a certain extent, because if you notice, a large amount of the poor people are black and brown people. It's not to say if you look at, Virginia and some of the coal counties, you're not going to see white people who are incredibly poor, because there are. But in Houston, like these inner cities, to be poor is to be black. And they're trying to push these people out to get their properties. And it's corporate tentacles, I swear it's corporate tentacles. I haven't really connected how this tentacle connects to that tentacle yet, but the developers and charters, gentrification, those all are interconnected. Can you talk HISD public corruption? You can go through some of my, I think I did one video, the Waltons. I talked about the Waltons having their hands in HISD board. You can follow up on that video, and also my articles, medium.com/@SamOser. I call out Houston Chronicle for being propaganda pieces of shit when it comes to school propaganda. School privatization. Truly, like, the way they talk about school privatization, it's like, oh, this is going to happen. They don't talk about it being a systemic removal of democracy. They're like, oh, you'll have 2 years off accountability. It'll be fine. No, it won't be fine.